Cavosa Excavating is a family-owned and operated company specializing in the installation of Title V septic systems. Cavosa Excavating is one of the largest septic system installers on Cape Cod. Whether it's upgrading your current system or installing a whole new system, Cavosa Excavating can do the job. Cavosa Excavating, 508-563-5530.
Founder Abraham Penn taught a valuable lesson that has been part of a tradition since 1919 when he said, "I'd rather make a friend than make a sale." For more than 90 years, Puritan has been making friends as a unique family-owned company right here in Cape Cod. At Puritan Cape Cod on 199 Main Street, as well as Chatham, Mashpee, and Hyannis, you'll find the latest in men's and women's clothing, as well as ski and tennis equipment, and much more. Puritan Cape Cod, 548-0116 or PuritanCapeCod.com.
Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting. Tonight is a special meeting. Tonight is Wednesday, January the 23rd. If you'll all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get going this evening, if anyone would like to videotape tonight, they're entirely welcome to do so, except you please need to notify the chair who you are and are you videotaping, actually. And can you state your name just for the, John Carlton Fall. Yes.
I'm Dan Freed from Cape Cod Broadcasting, and we'll be recording on a digital tape recorder.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Sarah Mantle with Hash.com. I would like to use my video camera.
Okay, that's fine. Yes.
Scott Giordano with the Bulletin with the local Falmouth.
All right. Anybody else? If you could please.
Grabowski, I may take a couple small videos for my personal.
Okay, and you with anybody, or is this for personal use?
No, for personal.
Okay, very good. First up on our agenda tonight is for the selectmen to discuss and vote the process for this evening. Again, just a reminder to folks out there that tonight is a public hearing for public comment on the WTOP report. We'd like to stay focused on the report, meaning what the alternatives are and how we move forward as a community and as a town. The Board of Selectmen will be making some very tough choices as we move forward and hope to have an agenda item and an article for town meeting which would require us to make a decision by the 4th of February for the special town meeting. Tonight, I would ask that the Board of Selectmen talk about a few issues, and the issues being, if I may add, number one of the things we did talk about was having public comment this evening, whether or not the board would like to limit the amount of time that each speaker is able to have. We have set up a sign-in sheet at the front door. We will take those folks who signed in based on the order in which they signed in. We will take Falmouth residents first, so that Falmouth residents and taxpayers all have an opportunity to speak. If necessary, and we do not finish this evening, we will have an additional meeting if that is necessary. We will continue to take written public comment, and that will be another area that I'd like the board to discuss tonight, when you would like that written public comment to be able to be submitted by. There are two additional areas to view this particular proceeding tonight in Town Hall. It is being televised live on FCTV for the benefit of those who just merely wanted to view this particular event tonight and be able to hear all of the testimony that is before us. Locations for additional viewing are in the main lobby of Town Hall, as well as in the water department of Town Hall. The old water department, I'm sorry, which is still on this main floor. This evening, I will try to call out who will be the next speakers. So if in fact some folks are down the hall, they'll have an opportunity to get into the room to be able to make their comments. Again, it is not the intentions to shut anybody out, and we want to make sure that everybody is heard. There are a couple of things that I would like to highlight. One is that the Board of Selectmen will conduct tonight's meeting in regard to our speaker policy, which was adopted on November the 5th of 2012. A few points in the speaker policy I would also like to highlight. Only speakers recognized by the chair shall be permitted to speak. The chair announces the limit of the beginning of the hearing on what the time would be. The limit applies equally to all speakers. No speaker may yield to another speaker without permission from the chair. Speakers shall focus remarks in agenda items and remain on topic. The members of the public audience shall remain silent until recognized by the speaker, by the chair. And personal remarks about any member of the board or any person having business before this board will not be tolerated. So this is to be able for us to conduct our business in a civil manner as we move forward as a community. This board is here and has been committed to finding a solution. And we want to hear from each and every one of you what your thoughts are. I can say that this board surely has had a vast amount of written documentation submitted to us over the last year and even longer. The WTOP process has been extensive. We've had 2 liaisons, Mary Pat Flynn and Doug Brown. Doug Brown is not able to be here this evening.
No, Doug Jones.
Doug Jones, I'm sorry. Doug Jones is not able to be here this evening because he is also serving in this community on the Superintendent Search Committee and had made a commitment to be, in fact, on that. He has expressed to me that he'll be able to view all of the public comments on FCTV on a tape. Also, he was involved as one of our liaisons to the WTOP process, so he is quite aware with all of the workings of how we want to move forward. So I will open this up to the board for some discussion about some of the issues. Number one, the issue about the time, the amount of time that we want to give each speaker.
Do we have an estimated number of speakers at this point?
We do not. I have a list here, which I believe is 25 originally, and I believe the list is continuing to grow. I asked the folks, as they list filled, to bring the list to the chairman. So, does the board want to entertain? Is anyone any suggestions on timing? 3, 5 minutes, longer, or whatever? We surely don't want to give everyone an opportunity, but the part about presentations, I think, would be better if folks wanted to submit this board some documentation as we move forward.
5 minutes would be roughly 2 hours with 25 speakers. If we have more, obviously, we're looking at potentially 3 hours. Do we want to say 4 minutes?
Well, I was going to say normally a public comment period is 3 minutes, but I think 4 is
A maximum,
reasonable.
and not everybody may use that.
It doesn't sound like a lot, but actually you can say a whole lot in 4 minutes.
So do I have a motion on that?
Move 4 minutes for residents.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. I've asked the town manager to be able to time the speakers and give them a notice and when there would be 30 seconds remaining so that they may summarize the rest of their thoughts. The other issue that we may want to speak about tonight is when we would like to finish the public comment period. In other words, the last time to take public comment. As this board knows, we have a timetable that we need to start moving with. If we're able to gain all of the information this night from the public comment, can get the written public comment possibly by, I don't know about Friday this week, but maybe Monday of next week.
I think Monday's fair. Give people the weekend. By 5 p.m. Or close the business on Monday.
On Monday, the 28th.
28th,
Does anybody have any questions on that?
4:30 p.m., Mr. Chair.
4:30?
4:30 p.m. Do you want to make that motion?
I move that the public comment period be closed on Monday, January 28th at 4:30 p.m.
And that's the written
The
public.
written public comment.
Okay, so there's a motion. Do I have a
Second.
Any further discussion from the board? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
We're voting non-residents separate, they're all going to have 4 minutes.
Non-residents would not be taken until all the residents had an opportunity to speak,
And they're going to have the same amount, 4 minutes?
unless the board would like to do otherwise. Does the board like
I'm
to
okay
have?
with 4.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Is there anything else the board would like to decide before we begin the public comment? Yes, go right ahead.
Yeah, not me. Mr. Fox.
The use of the projector is fine, sir. I already gave that.
PowerPoint.
Huh?
PowerPoint.
Oh, not the PowerPoint. That we did not have plans, and the room is crowded this evening for presentations. That's why we're asking to have anything in that nature in the form of a presentation, that you submit it. You can get up and speak about that presentation, but if you can submit the actual documents and exhibits that you have to the board, we'd have an opportunity to review them. Is that in line with the board? Okay. So with that being said, anyone else from the board have any other comments or any other suggestions before we move forward?
I think people who want to submit public comment can either do so in writing or can submit it electronically, according to this, which is townmanager@falmouthmass.us. Town manager, one word, @falmouthmass, one word, .us, for to submit comments electronically.
Do you want the subject line to say what it's about? So that
It would be very helpful if you said public comments. So again, that would be by 4:30 on Monday of next week.
Same deadline, yeah.
Okay, we're going to get going here, and the first speaker, and I will give a couple of speakers, and I will, if they could line up over here, because I don't know who else is in the hall, or whether there are additional people as well that happen to be down the hall. So the first one would be Eric Sokas, Richard Bowen, and John Ford. If you could make sure that you're going to be in line after them. Good evening, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay. Well, first, just make sure this is working, but...
You have to identify yourself and read from it.
I will. Thank you very much, Kevin. First, I want to thank the Board of Selectmen for giving me the opportunity to speak. My name is Eric Sockel. I own a home at 819 West Falmouth Highway, and I am approximately about 1,000 feet from Win 2. As a child, I would come to Falmouth. My parents later bought a home in Falmouth, and it's actually always been a long dream of mine to be fortunate enough to own a home in Falmouth. I love Falmouth, and I personally feel that Falmouth is one of the top communities on the Cape, for sure. It has a lot to offer. My position regarding the turbines is I feel they should be removed and be replaced with a solar solution. I've always believed that governments, whether they're federal, state, or local, they have a responsibility to protect their citizens. This is why organizations such as the EPA or FDA or others exist. And by analogy, supporting the rights of all citizens to have access to clean air, clean water, or safe food should never be based on economics or the rationale that the majority is protected at the expense of the minority. My parents, they taught me 4 simple words, which I've always tried to live my life by. And those simple words are, do the right thing. Doing the right thing is not always the easiest, it's not always the least expensive, but it is what we expect and hope that our elected officials will strive for. I don't see a lot of value going backwards and second-guessing the judgment involved in building the turbines. We are all human in this room, and we're all therefore capable of making mistakes. A person's character is judged not by the mistakes that they make, but rather how they take responsibility for their actions and fix mistakes if they may lie. So I stand in front of you, the board, the Board of Selectmen, and I ask you, please, do the right thing. Make the citizens of Falmouth proud. Let them know that their selectmen have the character to protect all citizens, and understand there are some issues that are more important than simply economics. By analogy, if the town of Falmouth provided a water system and only 100 people were poisoned by that water system, and the town was to reap a $100 million surplus, it would not be right to allow anyone to be harmed in this analogy of a poisonous water system. So I appreciate you listening to my comments, and I look forward to the way this is resolved. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Richard Bowen, and then Jane Abbott will be the next one in line. Good evening. Welcome.
My name is Richard Bowen. I live at 106 Ambleside Drive, which is well within the 600-meter limits of the normal siting of wind turbines of this size. Somehow or other, the town has made a great error. And for some reason or other than finances, they're just not willing to admit it. Mr. Sokol did a very good job of summing that up. Do the right thing. Please, for our sake. There are a lot of people in town who do not understand what these things do to you, but they're there, and they do cause us a lot of problems. All right? Do the right thing.
Thank you. After Ms. Abbott, it would be Judy Fenwick. Good evening, sir, and welcome.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for this opportunity to address you. I have a few short comments.
You need to introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. John Ford, Blacksmith Shop Road. I ask you for just a moment to simply listen. That little piece of, that little section of peace and quiet is what is missing in the lives of children, women, and men living in the neighborhoods that border Wind 1 and Wind 2. That's not all that's missing. Their good health and well-being that existed before May 5th, 2010, the commencement of the operation of Wind 1, is also not to be found. But you can all change that. You now have the perfect opportunity to rectify the mismanagement of the past. It's not only the right thing to do, but also the responsible thing to do. At the meeting of the selectmen with the wind turbine option analysis group last Friday evening, it was mentioned by the board that the selectmen must be able to sell their decision, whatever that decision is. They must be able to sell that decision on wind turbines to the voters of Falmouth. The health of Falmouth residents is a very easy sell. Everybody can identify with the concept of good health. It is also widely known that a successful negotiation is one that has a series of no's followed by just one yes. I request that you join your fellow residents and neighbors and decide to remove the wind turbines and replace them with people-friendly photovoltaic arrays. It is the only humane choice that you have. Thank you for your time.
Good evening. And next up would be Diane Funfar.
Jane Abbott, Metoxet Road, Woquoit. I think you all know how I feel about this issue because I wrote to you, but I would like to say right now that I have been a strong supporter of wind for a long, long time. My husband Tom and I were for Cape Wind from the beginning. I have a sticker on my car about wind, but this isn't that wind can win. I was horrified to find out that when the studies were early being made, that residents were sent to Hull to look at the wind turbine there, which is 660 kilowatts. And then several years later, up came a 1.65 megawatt wind turbine, and then a second one. It just is not the same thing. And the town just was unable It was early in the game, perhaps, but they did not go back into the history, the possibilities of distance from a wind turbine. And for that reason, you owe it to our residents there to take down the wind turbines and turn to solar. Please.
Thank you. If I can get in line, George Hampson. Good evening and welcome.
Hi. I'm Judy Fenwick. I don't live near the wind turbines. I live on Mill Road, Precinct 1. I was a member of the wind turbine options process and had the pleasure, shall I say, of meeting with you all last Friday evening. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of myself, but also I'm going to read a little bit of the statement that my group submitted as part of the final report. And my group was represented with Jeff Oppenheim and Linda Davis, and we had several titles as the time wore on: Multiple Perspectives and the Town Unity and Reconciliation Representatives. So I just want to remind the Board of Selectmen and the people here in the audience about the 5 core interests that our group started its deliberations with. And those 5 core interests were the health, safety, and well-being of the neighbors, property rights and economic impacts on property for abutters, the implementation of Falmouth's climate plan, the fiscal impacts on town's taxpayers and town services, and town unity and reconciliation, to achieve an amicable end to a conflict that had divided and challenged the town's relationships and reputation. So our group, focusing on those 5 core interests, prepared a tool for the 14 primary participants in the group to help evaluate and get a sense of how the process was going, and we did this in mid-December. I had the opportunity to give you folks a copy of that evaluation tool that hopefully you will use in your deliberations. Well, Jeff, Linda, and I have many questions remaining and many observations from our multiple perspectives. So we have several questions and some observations. First, what is in the best interest of Falmouth? We took the challenge, when I say we, I'm talking about Linda, Jeff, and myself, of being empathetic to all interests to ensure a fair process. And it left us feeling torn between the hard lines of our fellow WTOP members. We, the 3 of us, voted enthusiastically as town meeting members for acquisition of the turbines and the promised revenues. In retrospect, we should have asked more questions during the acquisition phase that have now been raised because of the adverse impacts on our neighbors. We were remiss as individuals and not informed enough as a community. That was the first question: what's the best interest of Falmouth? Second, how do we assess the relative weight of those 5 core interests? Because as a group we were asked to take all 5 of them and in our deliberations to consider those 5 interests. But as we deliberated, we discovered that should we take health, safety, and well-being of the neighbors to carry the same weight as any of the 4 other interests? And we 3 conclude that it should be more heavily weighted above the other interests. Should town unity and reconciliation be weighted the same as climate action, implementation, or fiscal impacts? We conclude that town unity is second only to the health, safety, and well-being of our neighbors. If the Board of Selectmen seeks to end the tumult surrounding the turbines, there is only one option. Finally, we deliberated and discussed our way through 24 meetings over an 8-month period and still felt that the completion of our work was rushed. We understand the need to bring closure to the process, but we have not concluded our process with a thorough, complete feeling. We feel there's an overarching duel that continues between the safety, health, and well-being of the neighbors pitted against the quantifiable fiscal impacts of the town. And I want to know what value the Board of Selectmen will assign to the health and well-being of our neighbors. And finally, I have a quote from Abraham Lincoln that I stumbled upon, and I can't believe how applicable it is to what's going on in Falmouth. I'd like to see a man proud of the place in which he lives. I'd like to see a man live in it so that his place will be proud of him. And I would ask that you don't be counterdependent and you ask the state for help before you ask the Falmouth taxpayers.
Okay, thank you. Ed Haddad, if you could get in line. Next up.
Diane Funfar, 27 Ridgeview Drive. I was also a member of the WTOP, but was out of town last week when the report was finalized and presented. I would just like to remind you of the reason that WTOP was formed in the first place. It convened because many abutters were experiencing negative health effects, a reduced quality of life and property values due to the operation of the turbines. If it were not for these health issues being raised, there would have been no need for a WTOP committee. As I see it, the only option that addresses these issues is the one that calls for the removal of the turbines. The WTOP came to the conclusion that the only options for mitigating the problems abutters were experiencing were to remove the people or remove the turbines. Buying properties would be very expensive for the town, and since the majority of neighbors do not want to move from their homes, this is not an option that would unify our community. What about the people left behind? Falmouth needs to seek assistance from the state and other outside sources to help with the removal and/or resale of the turbines. I ask you to do the right thing for the neighbors in our community and remove the turbines. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon Eddy, if you could get in line, please. Good evening, George.
George Hampson. I'm a Precinct 5 member and a town meeting member. I feel compelled to come here tonight because it's my obligation to know what's going on. That's one thing. And we cannot easily disregard economics. If you go to town meeting, you can understand why. Everybody's vying to get money. So economics is extremely important. That being said, I've listened to a lot of people, and I know in some cases the people personally, and I understand what they've gone through. I cannot visualize myself in this situation. I don't know if I could take it or not. All of my life, 30 some odd years, I've experienced noise, being at sea and so forth. But it's a different kind of noise. I could fall asleep on top of an engine cover, a diesel engine running. A lot of us could do that. But this is different from what I understood tonight. It's a different kind of sound. And I don't know how I would impact to that. So, be that it says, if I was king, I wouldn't know what the heck to say tonight. I wouldn't know how to vote. But I sympathize with the people and some of the pains that they go through. But don't discount economics. We have to have a plan, and I know for sure that David Vieira came before this meeting about a week ago and said, if anything happens, let me know, and I'll work with you. That's what David said. Thank you very much.
Thank you, George. Mark Cole, please get in line.
My name is Ed Haddad. I live at 64 Ambleside Drive. One of the things that I read in the report, the WTOP report, that struck me, there was a comment about one of the results that could happen here is this could become a toxic environment around the wind turbines. That's a very powerful word. It's a strange word. And it struck me very seriously as I would be in that toxic neighborhood. About 8 months ago, my wife and I were looking at adding on to our house. We just had our third grandchild, and we needed more space that we thought, so when the grandchildren came down to visit us, we had a realtor come in and give us some information about the value of our house, how much we should invest or could invest. The news we got was not good. It was not pleasant news, and we've opted to put our plans on hold. So this is an impact that's going to involve hundreds of people. This is not just the people, unfortunately, who are physically affected, but people who will be financially affected. A whole swath of a beautiful area in West Falmouth could be affected by the wrong action here, and I think you really have to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Neil Anderson, please. Go right ahead, ma'am. You're up. I was just calling the rest of the line.
I want to thank the selectmen.
Identify yourself, please.
I'm sorry, what?
You need to identify yourself.
Okay. I'm Sharon Eddy. I live on Blacksmith Shop Road, approximately 1,700 feet from one of these wind turbines. I'm here tonight just to restate the issue that is happening with all of us in our community, that These turbines are not helpful, they're harmful. And I do believe there is a solution. I just know that keeping them the way they are, even operating them at half speed, is just not going to suffice. And perhaps, I do believe solar is a more friendly way to go. And there must be some way to recoup some of the monies from these turbines. I'm sure somebody somewhere would want to put them in their backyard. Thank you.
Thank you. Al Fitzel, if you could line, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Board. Mark Cool, Fire Tower Road, 250, about 1,700 feet away from Win 1. And thank you for giving me this opportunity. So, to begin, the report's three options at first glance seemingly address how to reasonably solve this complicated town wind farm problem. I underscore the term reasonably. Reasonable means having sound judgment, fair and sensible. I'll comment on 3 points of the report. The correspondence and testimonies cited require the full light of examination to fully appreciate the gravity of how their content impacts the process that was just completed. I draw your attention, if you have the report in front of you, to the appendices, the timeline appendices. The 3 points, the first date, June 30th, 2011. The Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection acknowledged in a letter to former Chairperson Flynn and Health Agent Kerrigan, evaluation of sound impact from wind turbines was not considered by Mass DEP when it developed its sound evaluation noise compliance guidelines. Also noted in that correspondence, Mass DEP continues to work to update the noise policies and sampling guidance. Next, May 24th. Everybody knows that date fairly well. Soon after Wind 1 started operating, many residents reported the experience of unexpected negative health symptoms and sleeping problems. These experiences are officially recorded on the public record during the May 24th, 2012 public hearing. The next on the timeline that I'll draw your attention, August 28th, 2012. The Falmouth Health Board formally requested numerous times from the Mass Department of Public Health to assist in conducting a health assessment of the impact of wind turbines in Falmouth and to help ensure the health of residents was protected. The reply from the DPH, they advised the Board of Health resources to conduct a health assessment study are not available. Collating the escalation of negative health experiences with the DEP's own questioning of their own noise guidance effectiveness provides certain justification that Falmouth's wind farm problem is primarily a health problem. The response from DPH seems to indicate that Falmouth's Board of Health has been abandoned due to lack of resources. The fourth point that I'd like to make addresses specifically the break-even option. I'm an air traffic controller, have been for 34 years now. The FAA's Aerospace Medicine branch states prolonged fatigue has significant implications for safety-critical occupations in the aviation industry. The reason I mention this is the suggested shortened hours of sleep will result in placing a higher safety risk upon those aviators that rely on me to keep them safe. Reasonable? As for the effectiveness of the 12-on, 12-off protocol placed on the town's turbine, I've attached my listing, and I'll present it to the board, the written testimony.
You need to wrap it up.
Okay. I'll get rid of that. And I'll conclude. Health concerns of residents brought us to the table tonight. Health concerns fall squarely under the jurisdiction of the Board of Health. This report before the board is about political options. Yet in the broader context of moving Falmouth forward, it's about a simple choice. The choice between what is right and what is easy. If your board seeks to meaningfully contribute to fixing the problem that got us here in the first place, then there's only one reasonable, I say again, reasonable action necessary but to remove the wind turbines. Thank you.
Thank you.
And should I give you the written?
You can just leave it here and we'll put it in the record. Ian Halpin would be after Mr. Fitzel.
Thank you. Neil Anderson, Blacksmith Shop Road. After nearly 2 months, Wind 1 came on today at 3:30. I know what that means to myself and my family. Those pulses, they invade my house, they invade my chest cavity, they invade my vestibular organs, and I am going to do what is necessary to defend my family. I'm going to get those shut down one way or the other. You guys decide what you want to do with the money, but I'm going to get those turbines shut down. Thank you.
Neil Anderson. John Carlton Foss would be the next one in line. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Albert Fitzel. Thank you for letting me speak. The town of Falmouth made a gross error in siting these wind turbines. We all agree with that. So the town of Falmouth has to correct it, and it can't correct it by throwing a couple of neighborhoods to the wolves. And the town of Falmouth will never be able to hold its head up high.
Excuse me, sir, you shut the light off back there, if you could put it back on.
Do we need it?
Yeah, we do, thank you.
Save electricity.
Please put the light on, thank you.
So we can't hold our head up high if we abandon a small group of citizens for money. That's not what government's for. I hope you'll do the right thing and shut these down.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Ann Halpin. I live at 319 Woods Hole Road. I'm here to support the blacksmith shop neighbors and support curtailment of the wind turbines and taking them down. I don't think there's any other solution for the town.
John Carlton Foss. Okay. Richard Kohler would be afterwards? Okay, and then Judy Stetson would also be in line, please.
My name is Dick Kaler, and I'm going to speak about the tests done on Wind 1 during the night. The Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection measured the noise between like midnight and 3 or 4 in the morning, which is the quietest time. And they came up with a result that said we exceeded the 10 dB increase in noise that they permit. It was about 12 dB. Well, I looked at the wind speeds that were measured for when the turbine was on. The turbine was measured first. You get some wind. It was done at some wind speed, and then 2 hours later, they measure the background noise by turning off the wind turbine and measuring the noise again. Well, during this time, the wind slowed down, so the background noise wasn't as loud as it would be if it were done at exactly the same time that the wind turbine was turning. And so I analyzed what the, this would be easier to do with a graph. So I essentially drew a curve of the amount of noise the wind turbine puts out versus the wind speed as measured at the turbine. And then I drew a graph that found out, that I didn't find out, I made this graph that had wind speed at the bottom and dB on the vertical axis. And then I plotted the 4 points that was the background noise at its corresponding wind speed. Then I plotted above that the wind turbine noise at their 4 wind speeds. And then I drew a line through these points for the noise from the wind turbine. And then I measured the distance from each of the background noises to the wind turbine noises above it. And when I measured those, we calculated that difference. It was like the 2 lowest wind speeds, it was 10.3 dB increase, 0.3 dB more than is allowed. But the 2 higher wind speeds at around 10 meters per second, we got numbers around 7 dB increase in noise. If one could, we visited the Mass Department of Environmental Protection and tried to get them to reinterpret their analysis and use the one we used, which is correct, instead of the one that they used, which overemphasized the amount of noise that was being created. They said it was settled. It's settled, and it's like a court case. If you're guilty, you go whether you're guilty, or you go to jail whether you're guilty or not. Well, I hope that the board could somehow get them to change their mind. If for no other reason, it unshackles the town of being making more noise than is allowed.
Thank you. Mr. Foss? Mr. Finneran would be up after Ms. Stetson.
I'll give you this, since you have a computer.
Actually, I don't have a connector like that, so I apologize. Yeah, equivalent there too.
I'm John Carlton Foss, 80 Church Street. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I have a graph which you can't see. This is the data from the point that is at the highest value of dBA for the 211 Blacksmith Shop Road. And you'll be able to see it when we submit the paper and the slides, but there are some large peaks from aircraft or some source of a lot of noise. And Laurel, the DEP person, threw those data points out. Then there are, in black circles, there are 5 tree frog data sets that DEP also threw out. That leaves 4 points, local maxima of sound, 2 of which she threw out because of tree frogs. And then she averaged the remaining 2. One of those points, if you look at the airplanes or whatever they were flying overhead, is contaminated by the data of that overhead sound. So it really should have been thrown out, but it wasn't thrown out. And that leaves 1 data point. This is out of 120, which is the basis for a sound measurement. And that too is contaminated. If you look at the graph, you can see it's at the tail end of a loud contaminating external noise. And so if you then look at the next highest point, it brings the noise level down to no exceedance. So that's my comment.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, welcome.
Judy Stetson, 261 Quistit Avenue. I was here when we chose to put the wastewater treatment plant up there after a great deal of study and after Barbara Bunker said the nitrogen is going to come down into West Falmouth Harbor. Well, that was something that we didn't really pay much attention to many years ago. We put it there, I think, because there were no voters up there. It's not a very sensible place for it. It does mean we had to pump all our stuff up there. But we did as much homework as we could. I was on lots of committees, Finance Committee and that study of where should we put the wastewater treatment plant. At one point, they wanted to put it in my backyard, which was unfortunate, but didn't happen anyway. And then Conservation Commission. So I've been involved with this town for a long time. I got onto town meeting after being appointed to the Finance Committee. Town meeting elects us, but it's pretty much a Soviet election. And wanted to vote on all that hard work I'd been doing back in the 70s. Finally, this last May, I said, I'm too old, can't do it anymore. However, I had been through all of this wind turbine stuff. I went up to that field trip in Hull. It was a beautiful day, and we stood underneath it. It was quiet and calm, and we learned about how the math classes used it for math, and the political science people used it, and how wonderful it was, and how they wanted another one. Later, on Google, which I barely learned how to use, I found out that the people who objected did not live in Hull. They lived in Hingham, where they got those twisting bangings on the sides of their houses. It's not under where you get the trouble. It's out and away. I thought Todd Drummy's presentation at town meeting was spectacular. I understood his graphs. I couldn't quite understand these we just heard about. And I saw those pictures from the aerial view of how a sea farm of turbines had trailers of vortexes going down below them at town meeting. I am sorry, as with Judy Fenwick and her buddies, that we didn't do due diligence as town meeting members. I urge you to use local taxpayer dollars, state taxpayer dollars, take the turbines down. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up would be Dan Scherer and Henry Dick. After Mark Finneran, thank you.
Hi, Mark Finneran, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 6. I really haven't involved myself much in this issue, other than with the sufferers, as good a name as any, because I can be kind of controversial. But I guess I'm going to be anyway. The problem here is the town's inability to admit its mistakes. The sewer plant, the school, and the water tower are all perfect examples of that. Nobody seems to be trying to claw back any of that money. I think that you should do the right thing, give these people their lives back. I think you should consider if the shoe was on the other foot and just make the right decision. We'll bite the bullet and we'll go on from here, and maybe, finally, we'll learn a lesson. That's all I have to say. There's a hockey game on. I'll see you later.
After these folks, there is a Jane Wooden. Okay, if you can get, I couldn't see that. Read. Thank you.
Excuse me. What Dan Shearer, 4 Old Dock Road in West Falmouth. The wind turbines don't bother me. I can't see them. It's nice. When we first got Wind 1 going, I heard the complaints, and I really didn't believe them. So I went up there during the day. I went up there during the night. I still didn't believe them. I thought everybody was a little bit, we don't like what the darn thing's up there. About 3 months later, I had to go up in the late afternoon to the dog pound. And I was in the dog pound when it started to rain and blow a little bit. And I couldn't get out of that place fast enough. And I felt so sorry for those dogs. And now I know what these people are going through. And we have to do something. And I'm very worried about the money. I'm very interested in the town owing money. But I think we've got to find some way. Thank you.
Thank you. Preston Ridnick would be up afterwards.
Henry Dick, Precinct 8, town meeting member.
Oh, okay.
I share the buyer's remorse of many other town meeting members, and we certainly didn't do due diligence. But that's behind us. I just returned from a trip to Germany a couple months ago. Germany is covered with windmills. They're all over the place. Everywhere you look, there's another wind farm. I toured out in the countryside, looked at them, and you know what? There isn't a windmill within 1 mile of a single house. They fought this battle in Europe, and they learned their lesson. Don't try to fight the battle again all the way through. It's very obvious what has to happen, and that is the turbines have to come down. We made a mistake.
Thank you. Mr. Rednick, we'll save you for the end. I didn't realize. Okay, thank you. Colin Murphy would be up next after.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Jane Wooden. I live at 845 West Falmouth Highway. I am in a butter to Win 2, probably about 1,500, maybe 1,600 northwest of the facility. I have intermittent problems with it, depending on the wind and the direction of the blades. I understand the tremendous financial pressure that the town is under. If you cannot take them down, which obviously would be my first choice, at least give strong consideration to keeping them off at night. Thank you.
Thank you. Maury Hollow Hawks will be up after Mr. Murphy.
Hi, my name is Colin Murphy. I'm from Blacksmith Shop Road. I just wanted to say I hope you do the right thing. You've heard it all a million times, how it affects our lives. And, you know, it's like two things. It's get it out there. It's either you're going to help the citizens in that area or you're going to pay all the bills for the town. So if you keep them up, just no matter how much you're going to screw the neighbors. So do the right thing. Make us proud of you. And I grew up in this town, and I hate this town. I used to be so proud of it. I was the 4th baby born in Falmouth Hospital. I used to brag about that. I'm ashamed to be from this town. It's disgusting. I go home and things pound. The thing turned on today, it's pounding. So like I said, if you don't take them down, you know, you're worried about the financial of the town. I understand that. But how about the finances of all the people that live in that area? How about me? I bust my ass every day at work. That's my retirement. How much did you take away from me when you put those up? Did you take 10%? You going to buy my place? No one's going to buy it. You tax me at $500,000 a year. So like I said, if you don't take them down, it's how much are you going to screw me? I'm sick of it. Strap on a couple and do the right thing and take them down. Thank you.
Robert Sagerman, and then Thomas Chase after him.
I'm a Maury Harlow Hawks, 9 Old Dock Road. The wind turbines don't affect me, but my neighbors, they do. I feel that we should support anybody in this town. I don't care if they're your neighbor next door or the neighbor across town in East Falmouth. We need to support them. It's affecting their life. It's not fair. We need to take them down. Photovoltaic's the way to go. I'm going to submit into the record that I didn't know we could do it tonight. But, you know, we all pointed fingers at Otis to clean up, and we beat them over the head to clean up the water. And that was just the Hatchville people that were affected back then. So we help the Hatchville people, help the West Falmouth people. Give these people back their lives.
Thank you. Robert Sagerman. I live on Deer Pond Road. I believe it is a crime to put the money before the health of even one citizen. And it's an even greater crime for you not to spend time in that citizen's house to experience what they claim is taking place. Before making any decision, I think you should go up there, spend 24 hours, see what's really happening, and forget the politics. It's health. Thank you.
Dave Gilman, Upland Avenue, and David Moriarty would also be on the next on the list. Good evening.
I'm Tom Chase. These windmills are shaking up the neighbors. Why don't you take them down?
Okay.
David Moriarty, town meeting member, Precinct 6. Obviously, everyone in this room, probably everyone in the state of Massachusetts, probably everyone in the United States of America know how I feel about this issue. This is a health issue. This isn't a financial issue. Every citizen in Falmouth deserves the same rights as everyone else. There's no question. There's no question what the right thing to do here is. You know, me and another citizen, we went up to the Berkshires. We confronted the governor of Massachusetts. We've got a Secretary Sullivan looked us in Malcolm in the eye, said, we're not going to leave Falmouth hanging. There is help with the state. There's help in the governor's office. You're going to get your help. So please, let's get on with this business of taking the turbines down, and let's bring our town back into pre-turbine conditions, and let's love the citizens of Falmouth again. Thank you very much.
I'm looking for Dave, something 43 Upland Avenue. Okay, Barry Funfar, Kelly Suez, and Jack Scanlon would also be the ones in line.
I'm going to pass.
You're gonna pass? Okay. Would you like to speak later, or you just?
No, I'll just.
Okay, thank you.
Kelly Souza is the next. Yes?
Yes, go
Hi,
ahead.
I'm Kelly Souza, and I live on Blacksmith Shop Farm. I think the underlying thing is we keep talking about the economic factors and all of this. While I can more than appreciate the economic factors, I am a small business owner in this town, as is my husband. The underlying for me is I have 4 children, 3 of which are in elementary school. They don't sleep when those are running. Are you telling me that their academics and everything else are unimportant enough that the town's potential economics is more important? I kind of question that we're throwing them out as dispensable in all of this. I don't know what the answer is. I'd really like to see them come down. I know that may or may not be an option, but at a minimum, we can't run them at night. The kids have to sleep. I have to sleep. Everybody needs to sleep. Thank you.
Okay, Linda Oka. Kiera? Okay, sir.
Hi, Jack Scanlon, Precinct 5, Town Meeting Member. When these things were on 3 weeks, I had a neighbor who lives on Blacksmith Shop Road call me. I was doing real estate at the time. He said, I have to sell my house, come up here. This was 3 weeks into it. He couldn't live there. These people are not making this stuff up. It's happened. We all know it. So it comes down to, apparently what I read, it's a financial decision. The problem's there, we all know. I'm also on the Board of Assessors. And I'm not speaking to the Board of Assessors, but I threw out in my head, if you took 100 houses, they lost $100,000 of value, that's $10 million of private equity gone from all these folks. So weigh that when you're doing, if it's a financial issue, which appears to be, there's a lot of money being lost privately. Thank you.
Deborah Siegel and Doug Brown would be up, please.
Linda Okagawa, 821 West Falmouth Highway. I live 988 feet where my property is from Wind 2. My bedroom is 1,225 feet from Wind 2. I've been disappointed all along with how the town has handled this problem, and I'm really appreciative of the people who have come and recognized that the town needs now to do the right thing. I believed that they would in the past, but at the town meeting, when we asked to have Wind 1 turned off and Wind 2 never to be commissioned, I believe that they would do the right thing, recognizing that people were hurting. But to my disappointment, instead they said, knowing full well what harm people were claiming from Wind 1, they said, we'll turn it off, but we're going to put on Wind 2 in order to see how much damage it's going to do to people, how many complaints we're going to get. You didn't ask before placing me in harm's way and making me a study participant in your research effort to find out whether harm was coming. You didn't ask for my consent. What form did I fill out before you subjected me to the harm that had been well documented from the neighbors of Win 1? So I re-emphasize what everybody else says. Distance is the only thing that would solve the problem, and there is no place in Falmouth with the requisite amount of distance for residents vis-a-vis turbines. So I emphasize again, do the right thing. Sell them if you can, or give them back to the state. Maybe someone else can operate them, and we can take some satisfaction knowing that they're addressing climate goals. But here in Falmouth, we have other ways to do that. Thank you.
Sho Oklahoma?
Deborah Siegel, 50 Friends Way, West Falmouth. I would like to talk to you about sleep, which is something that's dear to all of our hearts. One of the options presented is to turn the turbines off between 10:30 p.m. and 7 a.m. Sleep information from the Mayo Clinic shows that sleep needs are highly individual, but vary at different times of life. For example, the National Institutes of Health says some people appear to need only about 7 hours to avoid problem sleepiness, whereas others need 9 or more. Furthermore, school-aged children and adolescents need at least 10 hours of sleep each night. Adolescents' changing body chemistry tends to naturally keep them up later at night, sleeping later in the daytime. The needs of infants and toddlers can be from 12 to 15 hours. Taking this step would violate guidance from the NIH found in their report, Your Guide to Healthy Sleep, which can be found online. Taking this step would put the selectmen in the role of telling the affected neighbors not only how much they can sleep, but when they can sleep. And then there are those who work at night and have no choice but to sleep during the day. Firefighters, nurses, police officers, to name a few, air traffic controllers. Their sleep deprivation is not in any of our best interests. So the idea that any government body would be telling residents not only how long, but when they can sleep seems ludicrous. I'm sure it does to you also, and violates health guidelines. Another brief but very important point that's recently come to light is this. Experts now estimate land-based wind turbine lifetimes as approximately 15 years, rather than the 25 years previously estimated. This significantly changes the economic projections for Falmouth. Although I'm not speaking for anyone other than my husband and myself, it is important for you to know that there are many others in this town who are strong proponents of alternative energy solutions who agree that these turbines are in the wrong place. As I said at town meeting 2 years ago, I think, advocating for them to be moved, particularly in light of the cost to the town, is a very difficult position for us to take, but we feel that it is the only responsible solution. Thank you.
Richard Latimer, you'd be in line.
Hi, I'm Douglas Brown, Precinct 9. I'm not affected neighbor or anything, but I've been paying attention to the subject. It seems obvious to me now that the turbines can't run partially on and off, constantly be turned down and slowed down. They need to run at full speed if they're going to run at all. That doesn't seem to be an option. I had hoped at the beginning of the wind turbine process we would find out that there was a small group of neighbors that were affected, and maybe there could be a buyout or friendly taking, but there's just too many people. It's going to be too much money. We can't afford to buy all those houses and then do what with them? Turn them into affordable housing or something, or a test center? So I think there's just too much, it's too much of a problem. I think that we need to strike while the iron's hot, ask the state for help. If we just keep on living with this and going on, it's just going to get worse. So it's unfortunate, but I think we have to admit we made a mistake and ask for the state for help, and before it becomes an old problem and they forget about us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Linda Davis. Mr. Latimer, you're up, just getting her line. Thank you.
Richard Latimer, speaking as a town meeting member. I would at the outset remind the board and all town meeting members such as myself that our obligation first and foremost is to the town as a whole. We've heard a lot about some group of people in a distinct neighborhood that has real grievances. There's no doubt about that. Those grievances are not human rights issues. They are to a significant extent health issues. But above all, what they are is an issue of taking of property. We heard one gentleman, we heard Jack Scanlon talk about the loss of value of $100,000 per household, and I'm not going to question that. I'm saying that's probably about right. So what we have here, at an essence, and in terms of what we as a community can do and what we as leaders with vision, having responsibility to the town of a whole, should do, is treat this as a takings issue, period. To take turbines that we have put up, perhaps foolishly, that have developed problems, for which we now owe, I guess, several millions of dollars in debt, to spend additional money, taxpayer money, to tear them down and wind up with nothing is folly. It makes no sense. The Constitution of the United States gives us the power to take properties by eminent domain. The 5 interests that were articulated here, the health of the people who are affected, their health will be improved by having the means to relocate. The interest in promoting our economic health, even though the cost of a taking will be considerably more, many times more, than the cost of simply taking them down, the expedient of taking them down, the cost of the taking will get us value back. It will keep the value that we already have in the energy in those turbines. It will get us value back, with either the land being resold or being used to develop more energy facilities to include solar. That's vision. That's planning ahead. That's not simply reacting to a problem and using the most expedient means possible. Is this harsh? Yes, it is. But it would be equally harsh on the voters and the taxpayers of Falmouth as a whole to ask them to take a loss, to spend money to take a loss. That's foolish. Now, if someone was to say to me that, well, let's take these turbines down, wind turbines down, and replace them with turbines that will conform with the planning board's new proposed bylaw, I'd say let's look at that one very seriously, because we on the planning board have been working on a new bylaw that will address all of the health issues that are being expressed here. And if we had it on the table, well, we'll take these turbines down, we'll tell the state to go take a hike with those, give us the money back, and we'll put up 2 new turbines that meet our bylaw, and we'll use those instead, and we'll combine that with solar. Well, that would be a good option, but we're not hearing that. That would be an option that requires some vision, too. Short of that, it is the only sane solution to say, sympathies aside and emotions aside, to simply say the interest of the town as a whole, and the tax burden on the town as a whole, is to get value back for whatever money we spend. It is not simply to throw money at a problem, to make it go away and lose money. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheldon Lowenthal and Alma Madden would be up after Ms. Davis.
My name is Linda Davis, and I was an alternate on the wind turbine option process for Judy Fenwick and Jeff Oppenheim. We represented the multiple perspective views, trying to look objectively at all the issues raised, the adversely affected neighbors, the financial issues, the climate issues, the physical implications. I attended almost all of the meetings, sat at the discussion table a few times, but mostly sat in the audience as a member of the public. And that also, I think, added another perspective to my thinking. I can echo many of the sentiments from people that I heard here tonight. Judy Fenwick, of course, Deborah Siegel, Judy Stetson, and many others. So I won't be repeating what they have said. I hope my comments can really be of some help in the decision-making process, and I will refer to the reports that were given to you. And I ask you, read every single word in those reports. Step back from them, get an impression, and read again. I happen to have ties to Sweden, and entering Malmö, Sweden from Denmark by the Östrand Bridge, you see to the right of the southern coast of Sweden, Lillgrund. And that's a wind farm of 48 turbines, big industrial-size turbines. They generate enough electricity to serve 60,000 homes. It's an impressive sight. These industrial-sized turbines are doing their job. It is a windy area, and they are cranking out green energy. It's a wonderful sight to see. Falmouth has 2 industrial-sized turbines that are not doing their job. They are not operating at full capacity, and they never will. If you choose option 1, to curtail the operation as little possible, still means that they will be turned off at times when there are exceedances to the DEP sound guidelines. If you choose option 2, to run them at either a break-even scenario or restricted hours, this still requires on and off scenarios. And we also know that with continued testing as recommended, there'll be a need to establish better guidelines, and quite possibly there will be no more areas of noise, other areas of noise exceedances at high winds, and that's when turbines will be shut down. That's when the turbines do their best work. Okay, I have to finish this. Thank you. According to the manufacturer's recommendations, these industrial-sized turbines need to run full-time. And to curtail their operation, shutting them down back and forth compromises their integrity to do their job. And what does that mean? It also means that it compromises our financial investment in them. It shortens their life, as was pointed out, and if you look deep into your report and you look at the increased revenues that are generated, they come at the end of the lifetime of these turbines. Will we make it?
You need to wrap this up, okay?
Possibly not. Curtailment is not the answer on either case. Reducing our CO2 emissions is an admirable goal. We need to do it, but it cannot come before the well-being of the neighbors. These neighbors supported and expected smaller turbines, 0.660 kilowatts, in their neighborhood. They got 2 large industrial-sized ones. They do not belong there. We need to shut them down. That's the fair thing to do. Thank you. Oh, good news, by the way. This is good news. This is a piece of legislation that has been filed with the state and by David Vieira, and it is an act relieving the adverse effects of wind energy.
Sheldon Lowenthal, Alma Madden, and then are either of those folks here?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Sheldon Lowenthal is on a conference call at the moment here. He's come down. So he begs your forgiveness and would like to speak when he gets off that. He's been waiting an hour or so, whatever, since 6:30, an hour and 15 minutes.
You may go ahead and use your time, and I'll call him back.
And I stand here on behalf of my neighbor, Alma Madden, and she had asked me to read a letter to you.
You get this time for yourself, or she can submit that letter as public record.
Well, I'm standing here for Alma Madden, and
So
it
you're not
says
gonna
right in
take-
this letter.
Excuse me, sir.
Do we need to have another argument tonight,
I hope
Mr.
not, sir.
Chairman?
I hope not. I hope not.
This
We
is
said-
not. This is unreasonable. This is a woman who is in her 80s.
Excuse me,
She
are you-
cannot
Will you
move out
answer
of
the
the
question,
house.
please?
She cannot.
Will
go
you
out at
answer
night.
the question, please? And I'm not going to get into a shouting match with
I am
you.
not.
Are you speaking for yourself now, or her?
I'm going to read her letter.
No, you're gonna ask. I'm asking you a question first, sir.
Okay.
All right? We are taking submittal of public comment in written text. If she has written text, you may submit that. She is not here this evening. You don't need to take her time as well as your time. If you want to provide her your time to read the letter, that's fine. But otherwise, the rules were the same for everyone in this audience. You're not any better or any worse than anybody else. So therefore...
I know I'm not any better than it. I am just John Q. Citizen. I am nobody, Mr. Chairman.
So...
I am
Malcolm,
just a citizen
Malcolm,
of Falmouth
Malcolm,
that's trying to do the right
Malcolm,
thing for my neighbor
excuse me.
who has asked me to
Excuse
read
me.
this letter.
Do we need to go through this again? The bottom line is, we set up the ground rules before we began tonight.
And what were the ground rules? I didn't hear them.
The grounds rules were that everyone gets 5 minutes,
Okay.
okay?
Yeah.
And that, 4 minutes, and that nobody gets to relinquish their time to anybody else. So if you want 4 minutes...
We've read letters in the past before here.
We have taken public comment via letter or written text. No one can take 4 minutes for themselves and read another letter for 4 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, okay, all right. You going to take your time? Okay, great. Okay, good. All right. We've resolved that amicably, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for your understanding.
Thank you. Do you like your time?
Yes, I would.
Okay.
This is the start of my time. I think this is Malcolm Donald from 124 Ambleside Drive. I live 1,250 feet from Win 2. I think the facts have been established tonight and over the past 3 years that the town of Falmouth had voted on installing 660 kilowatt turbines at the wastewater treatment facility. Somewhere along the line, the state came to us and said, hey, we've got 1.65 megawatts turbines that are almost 3 times the size. They'll make you so much more money. And by the way, we have them in storage and we can't really sell them. We haven't been able to sell them to anyone else. Would you take them? Well, I don't know what happened, but Falmouth installed those turbines. Now we have a situation which we realize that these turbines are just too big for their location. In other words, these turbines are missited. So it seems that the only real solution here is to take the turbines down and put in a solar voltaic array at the landfill. Now, what does that do for us? That solves pretty much all our issues. It restores the health of neighbors. It satisfies the Falmouth climate action people with clean, renewable energy, and it restores the fiscal health of Falmouth. Now, I'd like to speak to the process. Mr. Murphy, Mr. Chairman Murphy has spoken to us on a special meeting Friday night with the wind turbine option group when we presented the $388,000 report to the selectmen. That report paid for by the Mass CEC, which was in effect paid by every ratepayer in the state of Massachusetts. Every month, every electric customer writes part of his check to the Mass CEC. It's called the Renewable Energy line. So, the process, you're going to make a decision, you're going to bring it to town meeting, and ultimately you're going to take it to the voters. And I hear a lot of talk about asking the voters to pick up the tab. Well, I think this is abhorrent, abhorrent. I think it's abhorrent to ask the voters to pay for these turbines for a third time. They bought, the tax ratepayers of Massachusetts bought those turbines initially, and they went into storage in Texas. The citizens of Falmouth bought those turbines a second time when they came into Falmouth. And now you're going to turn around and you want to ask the citizens of Falmouth to buy them a third time. How does that make any sense whatsoever? Especially when we have a state organization, the Mass CEC, who is drowning in money from our ratepayers. Okay, I got 30 seconds, all right. They have 130 million to 200 million. We have had, so how do we access that money? I mean, we saw how the $388,000 was thrown at a 26-week committee life. Well, I have met with the governor, Deval Patrick, in the presence of Secretary Sullivan, and he has said to me and another fellow from Florida that the state is not going to leave Falmouth holding the bag. Now, we've also met with, and that's been verified in the Enterprise. His statements have been corroborated. Additionally, I've met with Senate President Therese Murray, and she has said over and over, both privately and publicly, that she is ready, willing, and able to help the town of Falmouth with its financial obligations in this failed project. But she said it's a local issue, and all she needs is a request. So we have the executive branch, and we have the legislative branch, and we have a state agency with deep pools of revenue, and we need to access that, and it is the responsibility of you to go after that money, because the state was involved in this project, which has failed. They bear the responsibility to take it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jerry Patamus.
Jerry Patamas, I'm a town meeting representative from Precinct 2, but I'm also a town employee.
Ma'am, could you please refrain from speaking while other people are talking?
And I'm speaking as a town meeting rep. I ask that the selectmen evaluate the facts based on the law, peer-reviewed documents, science and medicine, in the neighbors' complaints, as well as economic sustainability for the town. The solution is partial operation. It is the single choice that is fair to the whole town as a whole. Thank you.
Okay, was Sheldon Lowenthal still available? No? Alma Madden is not? Okay, and then we will go to, there are two folks who are not from Falmouth. Mr. Redznick? Ribnick, okay.
Hello, my name is Preston Ribnick, and I'm from Wellfleet, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak. I rise this evening with some reluctance because I know this is Falmouth, and having someone from another community come before you is problematical. But I come from a vantage point of I'm a president of Windwise Cape Cod, which is an organization made up of community groups and citizens from all over Cape Cod who believe in responsible energy solutions to our energy needs. The way I got involved in this is about 3.5 years ago. They were going to put the same size turbine in Wellfleet that they ultimately put in Falmouth. My wife and I were the first people in Wellfleet to publicly speak out against it because our backgrounds are in healthcare. We worked in healthcare for 34 years. We did the research. We realized there was severe health risk for people living in proximity to industrial-grade wind turbines. We arose in Wellfleet at the selectmen's meeting. We shared our concerns and our research. Prior to us speaking, all 5 selectmen had voted consistently in favor of the turbine project in Wellfleet. It had gone to town meeting. They had consistently at town meeting voted the funding and to move forward with the town-owned turbine, industrial Vestas V90 turbine. Within about 4 or 5 weeks of beginning to organize the community and to educate the community and the selectmen had a special meeting on March 30th, 2010, and they voted 5-0 to terminate the project and all further funding. Everything we said that could happen in Wellfleet a few months later, unfortunately, tragically happened in your town. So I come this evening to say to you that it's an emotional appearance for me, listening to all of the comments this evening. My wife, Lil, you'll hear from next, I think, and we are the only 2 people out of 7 billion people on the face of the earth, I'm pretty convinced, that have traveled literally around the earth in the last 12 months, and we videotaped interviews with people in country after country, from New Zealand and Australia and all through Europe and the UK, experts, scientists, politicians, environmentalists, and countless number of victims who are living through the same tragedy that the people who live near the Falmouth turbines. And the worst, and we've seen it this evening, the worst aspect of these ill-sited, poorly sited industrial turbines is what's happened to community after community after community. It's called community fracture. We've seen it everywhere. And what you've seen here is happening all over the world. And if you listen, and you've been so kind to listen to all of the testimony this evening, if you listen to the people, as one person said, I grew up in Falmouth. I've lived here my whole life. I used to take pride in this community, and now I hate it. And what a tragedy, a young person to say such a thing to a Board of Selectmen. My last comment is this. I grew up in Texas. And when you grow up, all of us have read a book that means something to you, and you carry it in your heart and your soul your whole life. Well, I remember in high school reading the book called Profiles in Courage by John Kennedy. It affected my whole life. What that meant is people in public life, occasionally, maybe once in your whole public life, you have a moment of truth where you have to make a hard decision, a difficult decision, but the right decision. You've heard people after people say, do the right thing. Make this your moment, your profile in courage moment. Do the right thing. Take these turbines down. Turn to solar. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Sheldon Lowenthal.
Thank you so much for your patience. Sometimes work gets in the way. I live on 99 Ambleside Drive. I'm one of the impacted people living near Wind 2. Certainly Wind 1 would wake me up with a flicker, so it's kind of a double whammy for me. I see the neighbors suffer a lot more than me. I hear on a windy day, the noise goes through the wind. It's not a noise like a refrigerator or a fan. It's a noise that you do not want to be next to. These repetitive beats. I don't suffer the same as our neighbors. I see them suffer terribly. The stories are unbelievable. And I think towns must protect people's health. That's the health and welfare is what you hear all the time. Health is the #1 thing that the town has to do, and I hope you do the right thing, the moral thing, to protect our citizens' health. You can't live with these things. They're not livable. People are abandoning houses. It's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is to take down these turbines and then deal with the state and deal with whoever else to worry about the financial aspects. But we can't deal with money at the expense of our own citizens. It's the wrong way to do it. It's not the right thing. So please, let's do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Lily Green?
May I ask, Jim Rogers would like to put his name on the list as well and read Alma's letter. Is that possible to do that?
Again, ma'am, we're taking written comment from those that are not here, so he can submit that, and the board is going to read that.
Okay, so,
We just merely leave it with anyone on the board, and we'd be happy to do that.
Thank you very much for
Thank you.
clarifying. I appreciate it. And thank you for the opportunity to speak. Lily Green, Wellfleet. And again, too, I sincerely appreciate this opportunity to speak, even though I'm not from Falmouth. As Preston said, about a month after the turbines were operational here, someone who lives in this area but also has a summer house in Wellfleet rode through the neighborhood and talked to these people, some of which you heard today that have spoken. And we've been in contact with these people ever since 2010, and we've tried to help them. We've tried to help them through the DEP. We've tried to help them with the comments to the Board of Selectmen, to the Board of Health, and other efforts. And I'm on the board of Windwise Cape Cod, and I was one of the founding members of Windwise, Massachusetts. And what I'd like to do is support the option to take these down and to put solar panel up. As you heard, Mass CEC, the consultants from the state gave you advice, and the state is willing to step up to the plate and help you through the governor and through the legislature, and I hope that you'll take that option. I'd like to also enter into evidence the internoise paper that was written by Steve Ambrose, Robert Rand, and Carmen Crow. This is from the Web Notice Turbine. It's about Falmouth. It talks about infrasound and low-frequency noise. It talks about these acousticians having health impacts. As Preston said, we've traveled around the world. We've interviewed people in 15 countries around the world, and the Falmouth story is similar to the stories we heard in over 100 interviews with people around the world. People living in the proximity of wind turbines have the same set of health impacts that the people in Falmouth are talking about. The situation is they didn't have these health symptoms before the turbines were operational. When the turbines were operational, they have these health symptoms. When they go away, they take a vacation, or they're forced out of their home, or they take a break, they don't have the symptoms. When they come back, their symptoms return. The problem is here, and this is what we're seeing around the world, is what is being collaborated by experts, and that is that there's a possible dose response. So in other words, the more they're exposed to this, the worse they get. It doesn't get better. And what I seriously ask you to consider is, if these people in your community are living in the proximity of wind turbines, they're sick now, they're getting worse, is there a tipping point? Is there a tipping point when, if they go away, they're not going to get better? Is there a tipping point when it's going to do serious damage to their hearts, to their lungs, perhaps even cause cancer? These are questions that are being debated, are being researched around the world, and we have interviews on videotape from experts around the world who are looking into these issues. And as I say again today, the people around the world also talk about the precautionary principle, and I ask you to take a look at the precautionary principle. If there is a reasonable, if it is reasonable that these turbines could be causing harm to your citizens, don't you have responsibility as boards of selectmen members in the capacity that you have to stop the turbines now, to turn them off, and to care about the health and safety of your citizens, beyond bringing it to town meeting, beyond the vote for the citizens, but you as responsible boards of selectmen members, and I thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. You, Louise Bartan? Did I have that right, ma'am?
Close.
Okay.
My name is Louise Bartow. I'm also a town meeting member in the town of Fairhaven. I've taken a special interest in the turbines here in Falmouth and in Fairhaven. My art studio was 963 feet from the turbines when they were turned on in Fairhaven. I experienced many of the same issues that I listened to in this very room in a hearing before the Board of Health earlier this year. It was a really hard meeting to listen to. A lot of the very same people who have talked here tonight stood up and said the exact same things that are happening to the people in my town. People are starting to think about leaving their homes in Fairhaven. They're experiencing vertigo, migraines. I went out and knocked on doors in my own town, and I've not seen that happen yet. I've not seen that happen here. I've not seen that happen anyway. Why aren't we going door to door and asking everybody, how are you? What are you feeling? Because we have to really do something about this. I went and knocked on doors in Fairhaven, and there was an elderly gentleman there, and he could no longer use his backyard. He was retired. He had suffered a stroke. Since the turbines came, he was suffering migraine after migraine, and he couldn't use his backyard anymore. And these are the same things that are happening to the citizens in your town and in my town. On Monday, I listened to the President of the United States make a call to all of us as citizens. So that's why I'm here tonight. I'm here as a citizen of a town nearby. I'm here in support of the citizens of your town, because I truly believe we need to speak up for each other. I think you should take the turbines down. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone left in the audience that hasn't spoken and would like to do so? Yes, ma'am.
My name should be on the clipboard.
Please, I didn't.
Kathy Sherman.
Oh, okay.
And I am from Brewster, but I've come to very many of the turbine option meetings, and I appreciate the process. But on the other hand, there wasn't that much optimism for consensus in the beginning, and if you had many people, like say 50% of the people that were empathetic to all the stakeholders and the neighbors, maybe that would have progressed, but unfortunately you had some very hardened opinions on it, and towards the end they did some manipulations that I think are unfortunate, shall we say, in terms of trying to get consensus. There are a few things that you should know just about turbine siting elsewhere. One thing is that there are government documents and research saying 10 times rotor setback for flicker. And more, for instance, for a neighborhood like Craggy Ridge that is in the direction where flicker will occur. So that means that already you're putting it 10 times. And there's also sort of a maybe unwritten half-mile rule. And where sound issues are debated are more after half-mile. So in other words, if you look at the literature, which, you know, the DEP, DPH panel report says there's insufficient evidence to say health effects, you'll see that in all the surveys that have been done, there's hardly anybody that received more than 37.5 decibels, and these were mostly with the size turbine that you were supposed to get, the 660. So, and the noise problems have not gotten better with size, they've gotten worse, because the probability of encountering uneven inflow turbulence and wind shear get worse. So, and you also have a turbine that may be excellent if you put it out in the desert somewhere in high wind, but it is noisier at maximum. It has a bad profile. In other words, I wish that we got to learn a little bit more about what happens once you get into the rated power in terms of why does noise escalate. It goes like from about 100 decibels to 109.5 maximum. And that makes a big difference, especially when you're in gusty wind, in terms of it going to be changing a lot. But we didn't get to hear that. We did learn a lot of things. We got good talks from Tony Rogers, and And one of the issues that came up late in the process that I thought was very unfortunate was that there was not consensus on accepting his estimate of how many homes would have to be bought out, or how many homes are badly affected. But anyhow, it also, in addition to having this profile of getting very noisy above the 10 meters per second, it has much more of the lowest frequency noise. You heard that from HMMH's study even, that there was audible low-frequency noise. And you also heard from HMMH, I lost my thought. But please take this down in the name of eventual hope that some of the technical issues with wind turbine noise will be resolved. I don't think they'll ever be resolved to the point where you can put them so close to within a half mile of so many people. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Chuck Eastman next, please.
Chuck Eastman, Precinct 6, Town Meeting Member, also on the Finance Committee. At this point, we need to make the town whole. This gentleman talks fracture, and I understand it because I live on Ambleside Drive within, believe me, very close to the Turbine 2. And I just see this town being fractured, as this gentleman's saying, and we need to make it whole, and I just want to be on record that I feel that we should take them down, we should do solar, we should work with the state, and we should figure this out financially, and hopefully that's what happens at this end, and that's will be our resolution. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mary Beth Knox, please.
Thank you very much. I've never really done this before, so I'm a little nervous. But my name is Mary Beth Knox, and I live on 24 Eric Clausen Lane in West Falmouth. And I just wanted to let the selectmen know that I actually did have a neighbor come by door to door, especially on Eric Clausen Lane, and I believe she's here, Linda. Oh, there she is, and she was very nice, and I wanted to thank her for her hard work and all of the emails that she has sent to me and to our family. And I just wanted the selectmen to know that I'm sort of across from the turbines, so when I come out of my driveway, I mean, they are right there. And I do have shadow flicker, and it's to a point in the morning sometimes I really can't stay in my kitchen very long because I almost get nauseated, and I just have to leave. I can't get ready, you know, to go to church or to go to school or whatever, but I just wanted to sort of let you know that. And I just wanted to thank you very much, Linda, for all your hard work and all the people that have really worked very hard on this issue. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kerry Kearney.
Hi, I'm Kerry Kearney. I'm a resident of Plymouth, Mass. I'm an engineer, and I'm on the Plymouth Energy Committee, and I'm here speaking as a private citizen. I've been involved in, I've been getting knowledgeable about wind turbines for several years now, and we're in the process of modifying our bylaw in Plymouth. I've spoken with a lot of people in the wind industry, and maybe this isn't a secret to you, maybe it's a secret to some people, but what's going on in Falmouth is an embarrassment to the wind industry. I think they'd be very happy to see this problem go away. I think you should take the advice of someone who spoke earlier, put some political pressure on the state, on the CEC, and ask them to help you get you out of the situation, take the turbines down. I think you'll find the money to do it, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think it will help people who really advocate for a wind industry. They don't want to see these ugly problems. They want to see progress. And this is an example other towns are looking at, and we're saying don't do what Falmouth did. There are other towns in Massachusetts that are having the same sort of problems. They're next on the agenda, and I think we're going to see more than a few turbines come down. I hope yours is the first. Thank you.
Okay, is there anybody else here? Yes, Lillian.
I wasn't on the list.
I didn't see it on there.
Lilia Franton, North Falmouth Village. And I'm here really to say something on a personal note. When these situations first arose in the town, I knew very little about wind energy. I'm a Green Party member. I'm a supporter of green energy, safe and clean, renewable. But what I noticed was there were many people that were not saying anything in public opposing the wind turbines. I heard about it in conversations, and I myself didn't want to appear as if, without knowing anything, I was just knee-jerk against green energy, because I'm not. But I think that there's an appropriate place for things to be placed. And I think that this has come about that we see more and more that this was not the appropriate place for most of the people who live in the area. But on a personal level, what I wanted to say was I am so proud of Falmouth residents, and I'm very pleased with the selectmen in the attitudes that I've heard tonight, and I've seen more and more in the newspapers and letters, where people have taken it upon themselves to come out with an opinion that very often could be criticized by those people who, like themselves, are for green energy. And they've taken the option of saying, we are for green energy, but it has to be in the right place at the right time. And I'm just proud that we are having this kind of forum. I sincerely hope that the selectmen, to repeat what's been said, do the right thing. I think for the unity of the town, far beyond the financial aspects, which, yes, we're all concerned about that. But in the end, what we really have to be concerned with is our community's needs and our community's future. And I think for all of us, not for those who, have one position or another, but for all of us as a community, I hope that you will do the right thing and remove these turbines and please replace them with solar voltaic arrays. We can do that. They're safe, they're green, they're dependable, they're reliable, they're a proven technology. So I thank you very much for all that's been going on tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else that didn't get a chance to speak and would like to do so?
Hi, I'm Jill Worthington. I've spoken, not tonight, but before. And thank you to the lady from Fairhaven, I think it was. I was one of the people in the very beginning, not sure about, when the wind turbine started, how much does it bother me? Am I making a big deal about it? So I originally took off on my own, went down Brush Hill, asked a lot of, knocked on the doors, and got some input. And then another time Kathy Elder came with me, and that's when we presented to the Board of Health. And then again, we've talked to people, knocked on the doors. And anyway, I just want to say thank you for all the neighbors in Falmouth, for thinking about people around the wind turbines. And then I also want to say, in terms of progress, that since Wind 1 has shut down, now those mornings I used to talk about are better for me, and it's not a part of my life. It hasn't affected my mornings. So that's one part of my life at home that's improved. So I've been very hopeful that there'll be a positive change, and that's my inside life. And then when I go outdoors, I've learned to understand the private turbine that's continually going on. I think about those neighbors that don't speak up because they don't feel like this is the time that they can be heard, because that's not the issue. But there's people out there in Falmouth that are being affected every day that don't feel like they have a place to speak, because it's not the town issue, because it's a private issue. So I just want to say I've been living in hope. And on the other side is the dread that if the town decides to buy up all the houses, where does my house sit? Is it right on the fringe? So if they turn them way up, that will force us to move. And like some other people that were born in Falmouth and all that, that kind of thing. It's where will that put me, and where I live, how I sit with Falmouth. So thank you very much for everybody's hard work, and carry on.
Anybody else that hasn't spoken would like to do so? Okay, I'd like to entertain a motion from the board to close the verbal public comment, and we would continue, as we had said earlier, to accept written public comment until 4:30 on Monday, the 28th of February.
So moved.
January, I'm sorry, January. Motion in a second. Any further discussion from the board? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. For the board's information, folks, we're continuing our business up here, so if you would like us to let you leave, those folks who would like to do so that we'll wait a minute, or otherwise, if you could just be somewhat silent while we continue to conduct our meeting. Okay. What I wanted to do with the board was to discuss, we had an option to meet again, but we've accepted all of the verbal public comment this evening. The board could set aside a small amount of time on Monday. We have an agenda that does have some opportunity, but not a vast amount of opportunity for our discussion. That would be rather quickly after the written public comment would be accepted at 4:30 on Monday. The ability for us to have this room on Tuesday evening is the only other date next week that this room is available, so that our deliberations and our discussion as we move forward for the following Monday's warrant article close could be televised to the public. So if it's suitable to the board that we could meet Tuesday evening, that we could discuss what our thoughts are and debate individually in the board of how we would proceed. Again, we had talked about a warrant article for the Springtown meeting. Tuesday evening, we could have that discussion and come with some idea and some closure, at least towards the warrant article. And I'll open it up.
I was just going to suggest maybe we come up with some options next week. Like Tuesday might be a possibility, maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday.
The only day that this room is available in the whole week next week is Tuesday evening.
What about downstairs?
We could, but then I don't believe we have the ability to show it live on FCTV. So that was the reason that we chose last Friday evening over at the library and then again this evening, is because not only the folks that come here, we wanted the folks at home to be able to see our deliberations as we move forward. And live. It could be taped in another room in the town, but the ability to broadcast it live before the press comes out the next day, and then people are having to read between the lines, because the press, even though they try very hard, do not get the entire context of a meeting.
Is it possible to negotiate with another board, and maybe they could swap and go downstairs if their meeting could be taped and shown at a later date, whereas ours could not? I mean, is it possible to consider that?
It's possible to consider.
It's probably the either the planning board or the ZBA or the Concom, one of those three.
ZBA I know meets Thursdays. Planning is Tuesday.
Right, they don't meet next week.
I don't know about other, but
What about Wednesday?
I am in favor of,
Wednesday
having it
Conservation Commission.
I'm in favor of having it on a separate night as a standalone issue, as opposed to on another night when we're up
Okay.
against a clock.
I am too.
Because I have quite a bit, I'd like to say, and
Or
So we don't
maybe
feel
we
rushed.
could start earlier in the day and meet up until the time the other board meets? I mean, I'd like us to consider what some of the options, and then maybe, what's today? Can't
Well,
take-
we would only
Tuesday,
have
Wednesday, Thursday?
whatever day it is
Wednesday?
next week, and then the following Monday is when the
I
warrant.
know, that's
So-
why I'm thinking if we had some options, because maybe we won't get through in one meeting, and we may even have to come back and meet again.
That's entirely possible,
know?
right?
My bigger concern is having enough time to go through whatever written comment may come through. Obviously, some folks may submit something within the next day or two, but there may be folks who, they don't get something in until Monday. And with the meeting Monday night, honestly, there's not going to be enough time for us to review that documents, or those documents, excuse me, before we have a meeting on Tuesday. If we could do something Wednesday, and perhaps, as Pat suggests, that would maybe meet earlier, and maybe we could ask, Wednesday would be conservation, maybe we could ask if they can move their meeting back a half an hour, just to give us a little bit of a window there, perhaps.
Or even
That's fine with
Thursday,
me.
or
If you
even
wanted to meet on
Thursday.
Saturday morning next week, that'd be fine
That's
as well.
fine, too.
I don't know whether that's acceptable, board. I know you have an ailing parent, so I know you're traveling a little bit on weekends, so,
Saturday the 2nd?
let's talk about this. I'm just throwing those dates out.
Friday night? Nobody meets Friday night.
Actually,
know. Huh?
that's,
It's Friday.
that would be the first, second, and third.
Yeah.
I have a commitment that weekend.
Okay.
Thursday would be fine, Wednesday would be fine.
Well, I can do, let's really talk about this a little bit between the board, and the question is, it appears that maybe there are some conflicts. I agree that we would be rushing it a little bit on Tuesday, but the reason was that we had the room available. We can ask the town manager to look at it. Keep in mind, we have to post this meeting, if it's Tuesday, by Friday. Yes.
Mr. Chairman, maybe you might want to consider posting Tuesday's meeting. You may determine Monday night that meeting should be canceled and replaced with a different night. But it would be posted, so you could go ahead and meet. And in the meantime, if it's the board's desire, we can explore the availability of some type of a switch on Wednesday and Thursday, if members of the board are available for those.
Well, maybe by Friday we would know if maybe we could post Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, so that we have I mean, if we don't suppose we could meet Tuesday, but we're not finished, and then trying to negotiate with another board to see if they wouldn't change rooms with us.
We also have, keep in mind that Doug is involved with the superintendent search committee, and I don't know the date. And he did have to make a commitment that he would make every one of those meetings. So it is important that we all be at this meeting. So I guess let's poll the board on the nights we can make it, and then let's try to ask the town manager to try to work it backwards that way.
Well, I'm available every night.
I'm available every night next week, so that's not a problem.
I can't tell you, Mr. Chairman, on the 31st, which is Thursday, there is a 6:30 ZBA in this room. But maybe, as you say, sometimes there's an option where we could do a swap. Maybe they consider moving on.
Okay, Brent, are there any nights?
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday's fine.
Time? I know you commute.
5 o'clock, no earlier than 5 o'clock, 5:30 preferred.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I can do 5, but Wednesday, 5:30 would be the earliest.
The days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? Or
I can do
I know
Tuesday,
you have
Wednesday.
another schedule. So.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, but Wednesday, I think I could make 5:30 at the
Okay,
earliest.
well, he's really saying 5:30 on any one of those days anyways.
Okay.
So it appears that this group here could do any one of those days. Why don't we plan on at least posting Tuesday night? We should know probably, maybe if the town manager's office can get in touch with all of those other committees and see if one of them has an option to be able to change things around and maybe move downstairs. I know that we'd already polled them, and they're all meeting except Tuesday night.
Yeah.
So it would be the change in another location.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
what time do you prefer? Do you want to post 5:30?
5:30 is fine.
5:30 is fine.
5:30 is
That's
fine.
fine. 5:30 is fine.
Potentially each of those nights.
That's right. We have a regular meeting on Monday evening. We wouldn't discuss this on Monday night. We would wait and do this just as a one evening discussion. Incidentally, for the folks out there, I just want to make it quite clear that the public comment period has been closed on this, so we wouldn't take any public comment that evening. We surely would want you to come, and if you would like to do so, and watch our deliberation, but it would be inappropriate to take additional comment once we've closed the public comment on that. So we'll work on a time frame. If anyone has additional comments and they would like to submit them to the board, again, please do so in writing, and we'll try to review each and every one of those comments. I know the town manager's office today spoke about putting them all together so they'll be available for the Board of Selectmen. Okay, so if that's all right with the board, we didn't vote on anything. We will post Tuesday night because we have to, and then we'll work together if we can get, by the end of the week, if we can, to get out a specific date. So with that being said, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you all very much for coming.
Cavosa Excavating is a family-owned and operated company specializing in the installation of Title V septic systems. Cavosa Excavating is one of the largest septic system installers on Cape Cod. Whether it's upgrading your current system or installing a whole new system, Cavosa Excavating can do the job. Cavosa Excavating, 508-563-5530.
Founder Abraham Penn taught a valuable lesson that has been part of a tradition since 1919 when he said, "I'd rather make a friend than make a sale." For more than 90 years, Puritan has been making friends as a unique family-owned company right here in Cape Cod. At Puritan Cape Cod on 199 Main Street, as well as Chatham, Mashpee, and Hyannis, you'll find the latest in men's and women's clothing, as well as ski and tennis equipment, and much more. Puritan Cape Cod, 548-0116 or PuritanCapeCod.com.